Good art, bad people? This is a subject that comes up again and again. Someone well known, a writer, an actor, a director, someone in the music industry that we, or maybe millions of other people, really admire, turns out to be a jerk, maybe even a monster. And we're faced not only with the dilemma of what we do with their work now. Do we get rid of all that person's books? Do we stop listening to their music? Do we boycott their movies? But we're also faced with the difficult question of what we do with our own past experiences and memories of their art. It's a topic I've touched on before, and not one that I could ever give a definitive answer to. I struggle with it all the time. I don't only struggle with it because people whose works I admire have turned out to be bastards, but because I fear that any day now, one of my true idols will turn out to be a bastard. It's difficult. It's painful. Incidentally, this has arisen for me today because I was reminded of allegations about the behaviour of the author Neil Gaiman. Now, I'm not a massive fan of his, but I have enjoyed a lot of his work, and I know that many people really do love his work. I want to offer just a couple of reflections here, and I'm also well aware that there's the possibility that what I'm doing here is laying some kind of foundation for acting in a way that I want to act rather than in a way that I think I ought to act. Maybe I'm looking for excuses here. I'll try not to do that. I'll try to be honest with myself. The first issue concerns this whole idea of idols. We don't necessarily set out to idolize people. We like their work for whatever reason. But we have psychologically enormous difficulty separating the art from the artist. I know I've addressed this before, but it just won't go away. We tend to think that only good people can produce good or beautiful things, good or beautiful in our eyes at least. It feels as though this ought to be a law of the universe. Good can't come from evil. How could a person who behaves, apparently, so badly produce such beauty? How can they even see or perceive such beauty? How could they have such insight? Well, I guess first of all, I don't buy that these people were born evil, nor do I buy that because people do bad things, they are evil through and through. I think this is a defense mechanism we put in place because we don't want to think that we could ever do something like that. So it's easier to divide people into good and evil. They do that because they are evil, but I would never do that because I am good. This binary essentialist thinking is misguided. Okay, so somehow we have to rid ourselves of this idea. Clearly there are not bad people and good people. There are just people, all of whom are capable of great good and great evil and everything in between. We have to protect ourselves against the shock and pain that hits us when we realize someone whose work we love and admire is, well, human, a mere mortal. But the other issue here concerns the structure and consequences of fame and celebrity itself. There are in fact two issues here. The first is that the behaviour of famous people is exposed to much more scrutiny than yours or mine. Not only are they much more likely to be caught out because of this will also garner much more attention than it would normally. And their fall from grace is correspondingly more dramatic. Secondly, though, this fame thing brings along with it some undesirable consequences. Privilege. People are treated in a different way, and they begin to believe, apparently, that they deserve to be treated in a different way. They take advantage of their situation. It introduces into all of their interactions an enormous power imbalance, which they may not even realize is operating. They may genuinely think that they didn't do anything wrong, sometimes at least. But the power imbalance is there nevertheless. And with that power comes great responsibility. I'm not sure how well I would navigate that myself. There's something particularly egregious about someone with such power behaving in a bad way. The crime seems so much worse. So the question arises, what do we do with the books we have in our collection? I would be strongly tempted to keep them because the art is not the artist. I'm not sure that much art would survive in the world if we only valued art produced by morally perfect beings. Maybe that sounds like an excuse, but I think if you dig deep enough into anyone's life, you'll find darkness. Of course, if the person's offence is in an area that's particularly important or personal to you, you're likely to respond differently than I might, however much I want to stand in solidarity with you. But should you throw out all of, well, let's say, Neil Gaiman's books? Was he always evil, a predator, even if he may have become one later? Are all of his works, even his earlier works, also tainted in some way by the shadow cast over them? And how do we know where to draw the line on that in terms of his life history and his creative history, if indeed we want to draw such a line? I think not buying any more of his works makes much more sense than throwing out the books you already have. In other words, not wanting to contribute any further to his coffers. Also, refraining from promoting his work to others also makes sense, if only out of respect for his alleged victims. I have to try to separate the art from the artist. For every book I like, I have to remind myself that it's the book I like, not the author. I don't know the author. I'm not sure that I can actually do this, but somehow I have to try to prevent myself from imagining that I have some kind of personal relationship with the artist. I have to prevent myself from developing an attachment to them, becoming invested in them as a person. If I can do that, then I don't have to be disappointed in them when they behave reprehensibly. And I don't have to stop appreciating the book. Maybe. I've been talking a lot about books, but for me I think it would probably be more difficult with a musical artist rather than a writer. While I absolutely love reading, books don't get inside me the way that music does. Even with my very favourite books, I don't read them hundreds of times. But I may well listen to my favourite music hundreds, if not thousands of times. I'm not known to go around reciting the chapters of books, but I will hum or sing a song. Recently, Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, whatever he's calling himself these days, he was charged with yet more and more serious crimes. Now, he's never exactly been a paradigm of good behaviour. I'm not a fan, I've never sought out his music, but on the other hand, I don't go out of my way to avoid his music either if it happens to appear on a playlist that Spotify prepares for me. Because, frankly, I don't care about it and I don't care about him. If it was an artist that I really liked, that I actually cared about, that I went out of my way to listen to, hearing their music after having discovered that they've behaved badly would cause me pain, pain that hearing Sean Combs would never cause me. I'm not sure if I could listen to their music in the same way. Maybe I couldn't listen to it at all. And that would cost me dearly. But maybe that reaction is itself excessive, like my imagined excessively personal relationship with that person. Maybe the repulsion, the revulsion I feel now is actually a symptom of the earlier mistake I made, namely of getting too personally involved with the artist, investing too much in them as a person. There's another issue with music though. No matter how many times I read a book, I only contribute financially to the author that one time when I purchased the book. But with music these days, because of streaming, I contribute financially to the artist every time I stream their music. It's complicated, is it not? I've said this before, and I'll say it again here. I am not going to morally vet the author of every book I read, or the performer, writer of every song I listen to, or the director, star of every movie I watch. And even if I did that, I'm far from certain that I would know where to draw a neat line in the sand which, if they were to cross it, would make them anathema to me.